Welcome to this month's version of the Empowerment Institute. My name is Dillon Savory. I run the Union Labor Council in our 4 counties, and I'm up here today to not only welcome you all to this wonderful space, but thank some of our co-sponsors and make sure that we're in and out of here, that we learn a lot of skills tonight, but that we're also not behind time. So I want to just start by thanking everybody for being here. And I really want you all, because everybody here took time out of their family lives, out of whatever they had to do in their personal world and came here. I want you all to start by thanking each other with a round of applause for being here. And I did want to make sure that our full house was able to thank the union that is sponsoring this event, the State Center Federation of Teachers with Keith in the corner over here. I want to give a big shout out to Keith Ford. I also want to thank the Central Valley Partnership for co-sponsoring the event. And I want to introduce, in case they're not introduced properly in front of their speaking times, I want to introduce all the speakers up front. So first, please help me welcome Danielle Bergstrom from Fresno land. She'll be presenting later. Patience Milrod, attorney in Fresno on all things local and amazing. Keith Bergthold with Regenerate California Innovation. Dan O'Connell with the Central Valley Partnership. And with that, I'll close and I'll welcome Dan O'Connell to the mic as he gives our additional welcome. Thank you.
Good evening. Dan O'Connell. I'm Executive Director of the Central Valley Partnership. If some of you have been to our meetings, we open up with every person introducing themselves. We're not going to do that because these meetings are getting too big. But beforehand, I had a young organizer tell me about a meeting that they are planning, and so I wanted to have River. I want to make some space right off the bat, and so rather than have 120 people introduce themselves, we'll have River tell you about an upcoming action and event that she is putting together.
Hello. I'm just going to give a disclaimer now. These lovely organizers met me moments ago, so just thank you for allowing me time to talk. I won't take too much time, I promise, but let me just introduce myself so you know who I am and why should you bother listening to me. My name is River Verdin. I do recognize some of you in the room. I was introduced to activism right out of high school, and over time got busy with college work. I'm now a federal employee who risks losing my health insurance, my job, my stability, along with my entire family. And I'm somebody who also does not have the time, but we have to make it. I'm going to be honest, the type of organizing I'm doing, I'm a little bit nervous right now. I just jumped into it. I started organizing last week. So I'm still learning, I'm scrambling, coming together. And, you know, Malcolm X once said, anytime you beg another man to set you free, you will never be free. Freedom is something you have to do for yourselves. So with that, those are the values I'm aligning with in my organizing. Again, my name is River Verdin. I'm not with an organization, I'm kind of doing it myself. My first event and a digital flyer will be out soon, and I'm making business cards, so to network hopefully with all of you at some point in the future. My first event will be Saturday, April 19th at noon at Judging by the Cover Books. I hope at least one of you is familiar with that business here in this room. They were nice enough to let me use the venue for free, and the only advice I have for anybody who's thinking about organizing is just get started. If you are like me and you're talking with friends and family about the rise of fascism and what can we do, I just want to let you all know I was at one of the 50-51 protests in Sacramento, and I saw a sign that stuck with me. The sign read, "What can I do? I'm just one person," said 7 billion people. My event will be covering entry-level activism and understanding political power in Fresno County. It will be led by a woman who is a local activist and political consultant, along with myself, and we are calling this event an Arts in Action event. The arts have been part of every social and political movement ever, as they reflect what's going on in the times and how people feel. And in an administration who downcasts empathy, how we feel matters more than ever. We're going to be having a folklorical performance from a student from Fresno Unified School District, along with a bunch of local poets and zine makers who are going to be offering their zines at the event. If you do come, please support us. We're just getting started. Again, that's a Judging by the Cover book, Saturday, April 19th at noon. Myself and the business will be posting it on Instagram. I know how we all feel about Meta, but without it, I would have never heard of this event, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you for giving me the time.
That's how we're going to fight and win. So, govern with an exclamation point, an imperative, a declaration. We're going to cover a range of topics from entry-level basic skills, and we're going to arc towards more advanced advocacy. Some of that advanced work we're going to take up in future trainings as well. Originally, in previous years, Govern was designed to orient newly appointed or elected leaders who were serving on boards, city councils, commissions, to orient to this new space. After the first Trump administration, we had a wave election in 2018, and some of the folks, Robert's Rules of Order is confusing, so we oriented people to that. Now, we've matured so much as a movement, our candidates are so sophisticated, they're walking in already pretty well prepared. Hopefully, we're looking at another wave election, and we're going to have another entry-level orientation, and Govern might change next year. But right now, we're shifting this. Tonight, we're shifting the audience and the objective. As we prepare activists and advocates and community residents on how to effectively engage local government, this is our entryway into be more strategic in navigating the institutional terrain where we seek to make change. Who is in this room is precisely, we can already make the change with just the people in this room. Dillon just mentioned we're going to make an army though, right? And so from here on out, we just start building and building, building. Many of us are already being activists on the streets. This room is bringing forward skills to be more precise in how we do our actions. We're not going to simply allow our democracy to be violated. And in all honesty, it's an effort to create fascism in the country. All you have to do is look at Europe in the last century. As usual, we try not to bring outside experts. All of the folks that you're going to hear from tonight are they're local folks. Many of you know them. Danielle Bergstrom, for instance, I witnessed when she was, first of all, when she was at the city, and then later at the Community Foundation. They did a consensus decision-making model in West Fresno to make the inaugural investments of California's climate project, the transformative climate communities in West Fresno, consensus. And in one night, they agreed in West Fresno to do that. Keith Bergthold, many of you don't know the role that Keith had in both articulating and then organizing the entire city around a general plan in 2015. A general plan is the economic constitution of a city. Keith is an expert organizer and planner. Patience Milrod. As I began to want to use CEQA and the law in our fights in a strategic way with litigation, Patience shows the way on how to use the law for the public purpose and for public outcomes. This is just the beginning. We're going to keep building and growing until we turn the tide here. Thanks, everybody, for coming.
Check, 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 check. All right, this one works. Okay. Thank you, Dan, for really setting us up for the success for tonight. Now, everybody knows why they're here, and I don't think I have very many slides. I'll have to double check. All right, so my job, we're teaching today in a linear fashion. We know that different people in this room have different understandings of what government works, like how government works. But a lot of us, if you're not focused on Congress or the national government, which is kind of the default position, you might be thinking about like, okay, I know who my city council person is. But the grand majority of us, we get ballots every couple years, and it's way longer than we expected, right? I have been doing this work for 15 years, and every 2 years, I'm like, what is this position on this ballot? So the point tonight is to lead you through a linear understanding that there are lots of different types of government, they do different things, and if you're a parent, you might want to go to the school board. If you live in the city of Fresno, great, Fresno Unified, right? Well, but there also is the County Board of Education. What do? We're not going to teach everybody about what everybody does. We're trying to give you the skills to know which body you should be searching for, how you should search for this information online. Should you be looking for where to park if you're going to go to the Fresno Unified School Board meeting? What day of the week it is? Why does it start at 3 o'clock? When is public comment? It is really designed for you to understand that there is no legislative local body that works the same. So in that regard, I have just a few minutes to kind of break this down. First of all, we know there's a city council, mostly in every town. The way they get elected can be different in every town, but they mostly handle your municipal services. They mostly handle the things that you see on your bill and planning use items. Then there's the County Board of Supervisors. If you've ever canvassed, how many people in here have knocked on doors and asked folks to vote before? Thank you. More people should do that, by the way. It's difficult because people are jerks sometimes, but when you get a good person to talk to you, it really makes all the difference. What I would say is almost nobody knows that there's also a supervisor that handles a county government that does something different from their city council. Why? Because they're called supervisors. Why are they called supervisors? Who knows? Somebody named them supervisors and nobody knows what they do. And that's important for everybody to just be honest about. What do they do? I don't know, they're a supervisor, right? And then there's the school board. It happened, Fresno Unified, third largest school district in the state of California. Biggest failing school district on the west coast of the United States, as we should mention. And they have an incredibly difficult job as trustees, and the administration is massive, but certain things run through the County Board of Education. Why? We don't always know why. It's a division of government, but if you live in Sanger or if you live in Kerman or another one of the Fresno County areas, they have their own school boards. Sometimes there are school boards that combine multiple small communities because that's the way they were formed way back in the day. So you just need to know that it's always different. Then there's special district boards. They can be water districts. They can be planning districts, they can be fire districts, metropolitan flood districts, and sometimes we vote for those and sometimes we don't. There's a planning commission, oftentimes appointed planning commission members, and then there's the housing authority, which I don't think in our community is publicly elected, but there are other publicly elected special commissions, and in some areas, housing authority board members are elected. So just the point of this is, it's all really confusing, and your job, based on the issue you're looking for, is to find out exactly what type of mentality you want to get into when you're searching for a problem and how to attend those meetings. You should know on the front end it's going to be difficult, and you should know on the second end that you're going to need to know how to use Google. And that's why Fresno Land is here today. Fresno Land is going to break down live search engines. If you want, hey, Fresno School Board, that's not going to help you. Fresno Unified School Board, maybe that helps you in a search engine. Fresno Unified School Board Trustees, that's going to get you further. Fresno Unified School Board Trustees meetings, that's going to get you even further. So every little bit that you understand tonight is going to help you not get frustrated and then actually attend a meeting and make a difference. So, City Council, they run cities or towns. They can be elected by district or at large, which is a joke when they're elected at large, but it still happens. They do local laws, ordinances, budgets, land use, city services. The County Board of Supervisors, they're for the county. They do a lot of health services, super important, big budgets, and they're really more important for cities that are not as big as Fresno, but still exist within the county, and this is coinciding with other counties that we represent. And they also have a huge budget. They do roads, jails, the sheriff, and unincorporated areas. The school boards, obviously they do school stuff. They also have some appointed members in some areas, and they can do curriculum. Most importantly, our trustees hire our superintendents. And special districts, these are all over the place. Water, fire, transit. It totally depends on the region that you live in, but there are special districts throughout the region that do a lot of different stuff, and you're probably a part of one of them, and you probably don't understand that you can vote or participate in these, but it is important, and they very often do not get a lot of public comment. And then the Planning Commission, they do a lot of land use stuff behind the scenes and send things packaged, ready-made to the City Council, which oftentimes are not doing enough of their own job. And then the Housing Authority is kind of a moving target depending on which area you live in. So again, the point is, it's different. What you might want to accomplish, you might show up to the City Council, expect to be handling something that is not handled by that body. So your job tonight is to learn the skills, to research, to understand how to not get frustrated, and find the topic area, your representative, the district you live in, how to submit public comment, how to be good at public comment, and how to get your voice from this room to the elected official that should be doing their job. Does that make sense? Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah. Thank you. Okay, it's my pleasure to welcome up one of the most I want to say innovative people in the city of Fresno that has fundamentally changed journalism in our entire region, and that's Danielle Bergstrom with Fresno Land. Please give it up for Donnie.
You're too kind. Thank you, Dillon. That's not true. I follow in the footsteps of many. So good to be here, and the amount of people here is really impressive, and I hope you all flood your public meetings, because that's going to be really important. Okay, so I am the executive director and managing editor of Fresno Land. We are a nonprofit, independent newsroom here in Fresno. We do a lot of investigative journalism. We do explanatory journalism. We try to cover the news. And I'm here to talk about how to find stuff. And journalists are basically like above average people at using Google. That's probably one of our best skill sets. So I'm going to ask a few questions. How many people here live in the city of Fresno? Okay, good amount. How many people don't live in the city of Fresno but live in Fresno County? Okay. Madera County. Okay, a handful, cool. Tulare County, any? Okay, good. Kings County. Anyone? No one? Okay, that's good to know. I'm gonna spend probably more than average time on the city of Fresno because I live in Fresno. A lot of you are from Fresno. It's the place that's easiest for me to talk about, but I will also try to cover the other places as well. Okay, so if you don't know how to locate your public representatives, your first stop is going to be Google. And like Dillon said, there's some search terms that we can go into, but that should always be your first stop, Google. And we can talk about that later. Every year or every other year when you get your ballot, you will almost always have on that ballot a list of different officials you're voting for. If you're one of the very rare people that actually remembers all those obscure districts that are on your ballot, that's another way to find it. Again, not very accessible in non-election years like this one, but that's another place to locate your public representatives. Your water, sewer, and trash bills are another good way to find out who your public representatives are. If you live in the city of Fresno, the city is also your water provider, your trash provider, your sewer provider, so it's all one and the same. But if you don't live in the city, chances are you're paying lots of different institutions for those services. For instance, if you live in Pinedale, you have the Pinedale County Water Board, its own separate agency. And so your bills are a good place to figure that out. If you're a homeowner, your property tax bill also lists all the little things that you pay towards, like the mosquito abatement district. Who knew that we had that? If you live in the cemetery district, you might be paying on that on your property tax bill. If you're a renter, unfortunately, you're probably out of luck unless you want to go to your landlord and say, hey, show me your property tax bill because I want to know who I can start to talk to about these issues. And then a question that I hear all the time is, I live in the Fresno-Clovis metro, but how do I know if I'm in the city or county or if I'm in Clovis? What's the sign for Clovis? Brown, yes, okay, we're good on that. That's a clear one. How about Fresno County? What's the difference between Fresno County and Fresno City? Sidewalks is big, but it's not always. Sometimes there's parts of the city. What? Streetlights, that's a good one too. But it's usually accurate, but not always 100% accurate. Any other? Trash service, yeah, that's a good one. Back there? The sheriff. Yes. Is the sheriff showing up if you make a call for service? That's a big one. Not 100%. Fire hydrants? Yes, that's another big one. Do you have fire hydrants in your neighborhood? If you do, it's city. Any others?
The conditions of the roads.
Yep. That works, but not, have you been to certain parts of Fresno? Another way is if you look at the street signs. I'm a typography nerd. Fresno County, the text on the signs is a lot bigger than in the city of Fresno. I should have brought an image, I'm so sorry I didn't. But once you see it, you can't unsee it, at least in my mind. So that's always a fun way of figuring it out. All right, let's go next. So I've worked with a lot of people over the years on community engagement. And one thing that I feel like is just a baseline is your right to be there. And I know it for people who have never done activism or never engaged with their local representatives, it can be really intimidating to walk, into Fresno City Hall, and there's the big dais, and it's a really nice building, and you absolutely have a legal right to be in that meeting if it's a public meeting. And so I think that's just a fundamental thing I want to establish, and that's state law in California that we have. And every single public body, whether it's the city of council, the board of supervisors, your local water board, they have to allow public comment before any issue that they talk about. They do have to provide a recording of that meeting to anyone who asks. They do have to provide agendas 72 hours in advance. If they don't, that's actually grounds to cancel the meeting. They have to take all of their votes in public unless something is on closed session. Todd might cover that maybe later, possibly. But if they're not taking votes in public, that's a major red flag. And they have to hold their meetings in very accessible places that are not discriminatory. So I just want to lay out the land really fast on that. Now let's Google. And I think it's kind of set up. And we'll start with the city of Fresno because that's easiest. So let's start with the Fresno City Council. We'll do the...
Do you want to two-hand it with this as your mic?
Oh, sure.
That one's now on.
Let me turn this off.
Two-hand it.
Whoop. Sorry. All right. Fresno City Council. Easy enough. It's the first hit. And it takes us to the city's page. We're not going to allow them to know our location. And here's your council members, all 6 of them, although Brandon Vang, who just got elected to District 5, literally got sworn in today, so his picture will be showing up here very soon. Oh, sorry, all 7 of them. There's Nelson Esparza. And if you click on them, here's Nick Richardson. He represents District 6. Got a picture of him. Get to see his some information about him. If you live in his district, this is where you might be able to make some requests about issues in the district, and then of course contact information if you want to contact them. That's one way, is through the form. There are other ways as well, but that's just the first one that we'll start with. Okay, so how do you know if you live in the city of Fresno and you don't know which council member is yours? You go on this little district locator. And they have a nice little interactive map. So you just use the trackpad that you have to scroll in, and I live in District 1. This is about where I live. And that is Annalisa Perea, and so I know to contact her. And to find her contact information on the site, you can use the form, but every council member in Fresno uses a fresno.gov address. Every city employee uses a fresno.gov. And each council member has a general address that's just District 1 at fresno.gov or District 2 at fresno.gov. Once you learn the nomenclature of the emails, it becomes easier to find how to contact people. I personally don't like using forms on websites because sometimes they go into a void and you never know if your emails get answered. So usually if you use like a District 1, that helps you get a little bit faster to someone, just FYI. Okay, now let's talk about finding the meetings. So again, this is the website just the Fresno City Council Google search got us to this landing page. Right here, there's this Granicus meeting agendas and minutes. That's the really important link to remember. And this takes us to every single city meeting. So not just the Fresno City Council, but also the Historic Preservation Commission, the Civil Service Board, the Active Transportation Advisory Committee, Council District 5 Project Review Committee, Disability Advisory Commission. The city has many, many, many boards and commissions. Many of them are advisory. The council is really where it's at in Fresno's form of government, but a lot of interesting things. And so For instance, we have, today we had a city council meeting. So down here, April 10th, city council, you can click on the PDF of the agenda. And this is it. This is all the things that they talked about. And I'm a big fan of Control F. Does anyone else like to use Control F to find things? Yes. Excellent. Love the Control F fans. For those of you who don't use Control F, it's going to become your new bestie. I'm not on a Mac, so bear with me. I think I can still do it. All right, tell me a topic you want to know if they talked about. SADA. Did they talk about SADA? Thanks, patient. No, they did not. It's not on here.
481.
481? Just 481?
AB 481.
Oh, AB4. Oh, yeah. Okay, I know what you're talking about. Oops, I didn't spell it right. No.
The abbreviations generally aren't going to work, and that's maybe a part of the search learning here.
Mm-hmm.
If you put assembly bill, and in SADA specifically, you'd want to put Southeast Development Area.
Good
So
call.
that's just the agendas are overly formal. You're going to find out. There it is.
There it is. The Southeast Development Area. So this is not a formal item. It's the Southeast Development, yes, thank you, Patience, for correcting me. It is a formal item because people can request to be on the agenda formally. And so this is my mouse is getting in the way. This is a person from the public who requested to talk about the Southeast Development Area Plan and what the infrastructure costs are. And so you can actually, maybe Patience can talk about that later, how you actually put that on the agenda. I actually don't know how you do that. Okay, great. I've never done it before. Another person wanted to talk about that. So using Control F is a good way to quickly assess. I know they also had a discussion of military equipment today that the police department uses. This was on the consent agenda, so I just searched military, and here it is, approve the renewal of the Fresno Police Department Annual Military Equipment Use Report. Okay, so that's the Control F and finding the agenda. This is helpful if you already kind of know what you're looking for on a specific agenda. But what if you're kind of like just getting started and you're like, I care about affordable housing, but I don't really know where to start. I just want to see what the council or what the city is talking about on this specific issue. So I went back to this. This is the Granicus page. All of the city meetings are here. But right now we're in calendar view. So if you toggle over to legislation view, this is just a search of city policy, anything that have been on council items over the last decade or so. Todd can correct me about how far legislative search goes back to. It's about a decade? Yeah, roughly a decade. Does anyone want to give me a topic?
Sanctuary City.
Sanctuary City, great. I'm using quotations, by the way, because sometimes it doesn't like it if you don't do that. Well, what if we just do sanctuary? Take out city, because it could have been cities. Nothing.
That's right, we don't have it.
We don't have a sanctuary city, and no one has put it on the agenda in at least a decade. Someone want to give me another topic?
You're searching under this year, you want to change that?
Thanks, Todd. Love doing this in front of everyone. Okay, let's try that search again.
That's how we learn.
I know, that's how we learn. Learn by failing in front of 200 people.
We love you.
Sanctuary city. Well, still no. Let's just try sanctuary. Okay, so we have here the first one in 2017. The city council brought forward a resolution to oppose SB 54, which is the state's version of sanctuary city, so with the Sanctuary State Act. But it looks like here it was put on the agenda, but it never passed. So there we go.
Luis Chavez.
Thank you, Luis Chavez. Does someone have something else they want to search? Climate. Yeah, let's just see what's the council doing on climate. Lots of things. We've got a general plan annual progress report. I'm assuming this comes up because climate is in the summary. A grant application from the US EPA for the Thriving Communities grant maker program to do some brownfields cleanup. So if you want to go into it more, you click on this number over here, and you'll see it was approved on the consent calendar. You can open the resolution. Sometimes you'll get a staff report. Yeah, we have a staff report here. So if you click on text, you can see the whole staff report, and it basically goes into more detail about what the city's trying to do. And basically, they wanted to accept $350,000 from EPA to find a few brownfields in downtown Fresno, Chinatown, Southwest, and Elm Avenue in West Fresno to clean up brownfields in that area. And you can kind of go through the details more.
Utility costs going up.
Yeah, truly. So this is the city. Now, thank you, Todd, and your colleagues. The city of Fresno is by far the easiest legislative body in the Central Valley to find this type of information. Does anyone want to throw out another public body that's not the city of Fresno?
Tulare County LAFCO.
Oh, Tulare County LAFCO. Going for the obscure. Love it. All right. First, does anyone know what LAFCO is? Besides you.
Local agency formation.
Besides, you're a planner. You don't count. Do any non-city planners know what LAFCO is? Let's refine that. Okay, no. Well, as I'm searching, let's see if I can multitask here. May not be able to. These are quotations. Tulare County LAFCO. They have a website. You don't always get a website with the small ones. So let's just read what they say they do and figure out if it makes any sense at all. Tulare County LAFCO is responsible for coordinating logical and timely changes in local governmental boundaries, conducting special studies which review ways to reorganize, simplify, and streamline government structure and planning spheres of influence for each city and special district in each county. Does anyone know what that means?
No.
Yeah, you know what that means. They create water districts, exactly. So LAFCOs, I'm so glad you brought this up because this is a little fun little tangent. So LAFCOs, every county has a LAFCO, and what they do is they do these things called municipal service reviews. And so if you don't live in a city and you live in like an unincorporated area and you're not attached to a city, they're the ones that go in and say, okay, people who live in Allensworth are paying their water bill to this agency, they're paying their sewer bill to this agency, they're paying their, their flood control bill to this agency, and that's really scattered and disorganized, and each agency kind of bumps into each other, and they're just not efficient. And so what LAFCOs are supposed to do is kind of say, how can we organize government to make it operate more efficiently so people aren't paying 5 different bills to 5 different agencies without it making sense? So that's what they're supposed to do in theory. In practice, different story. Allensworth, perfect example. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to tell it very well, but I'll do my best. So does everyone know Allensworth, Tulare County? Excellent. Remember the floods in 2023? Came down Tule River, and there was this standoff between the owners of the canals and the organizations who were supposed to be in charge of the riverbed, and the railroad owner, I can't remember who it was, over whose job it was to protect Allensworth from being flooded by these floodwaters that were coming through in the riverbed. And they really literally could not figure out whose job it was. And so the floodwaters kept coming, it made some damage, and it all was because none of these organizations could get figured out on legally whose responsibility it was to protect the community from the floods. So anyways, you need organized planning. I know it's nerdy. Let's do a school one. Does anyone want to throw out a school board that you want to look into? Kerman? Great. Kerman is great. Kerman Unified School District. And let's use our quotes because Google does prefer quotes. And here we are, first hit. And it's nice they have it somewhat organized. Sorry, guys. This mouse is not my favorite. So you have calendars, but on a school board site, calendars could be a lot of things. If you're a parent, you're looking for the academic calendar. What days do my kid have off from school? You're not looking necessarily always for the school board calendar. But if you're like, I want to talk to these people and figure out what they're actually doing in charge of my school district, so we go to the website. Usually About Us is a good place to start if you're looking for who's in charge. It's not always perfect, but it's usually a good place to start. Anything that says About Us. And so here we go, About Us. Oops. We've got About the Board. Cool. Who's our board? We've got 5 people. And it looks like we've got names and pictures. That's helpful. And a boundary map. Okay. So that's helpful. It's not interactive like the city of Fresno, but it's somewhat navigable if it's your first time. Unfortunately, no contact information. Not my favorite website, but we can work with this. They do have a contact us over here, so presumably, nope, staff directory is actually not going to be that helpful. Neither is a directory. This one you might have to, let's see. If I was trying to get in charge of my representative with this organization chart, usually I would try to find someone that has like communications in their title, or not information technology. This is a tough one. Maybe the assistant to the superintendent. Assistants always know where to go. That's probably where I'd start. I'd give this person, Luz Camacho, a call and say, I need to get in touch with Daniel Babshoff on the board. How do I get to him? That's where I would start. It's not perfect. These websites are, they're not required to have a clear email address and a phone number. All right, so let's say you want to know more about what they're talking about on the board. So let's go to this board agenda and meetings. And they have some information. They hold a regular board meeting on the third Thursday of each month. Please check their calendar for exact dates of those board meetings as someone's buried. That's good to know. That's at Kerman High School, 6 o'clock. Cool, very clear. And here's our button for board agendas. Let's see. Not the most clear website I have seen, but there's one today. Oh, they're having it right now. Down. Yeah. Let's see, view the agenda. Okay, so not exactly the most searchable agenda, but it seems like you have this thing at the sides that you can look down, and we see they're approving some professional development services, an agreement for the Kerman Summer Bridge program, which is usually, childcare and program and activities for the summer. Some overnight student activity, okay, out-of-state staff conference. So it's not the most transparent, but we can work with this. Is there anything that anyone do you want to, who, it was you that suggested this? Is there anything you want to dig into more to learn about?
What the meeting is about today?
Yeah, what is the meeting about? Great question. It's, these items are unclear. Like this first one, the approval of agreement for professional development services for Kagan Structures. So they are they're wanting to work with this organization called Kagan Structures, Professional Development, to work with teachers on engaging research-based cooperative learning strategies to boost student participation, achievement, and social skills. It's a consultant. And it's for $27,390. Now, if you really wanted to deep dive, you can just be like, what's Kagan Structures? Oh, thank you. Where was the name? Yep. Thank you. Yes. So then you would contact Sandeep Jaspal to talk to them, to figure out what is this and is it interesting? Is it something I'm interested in?
I would like to go back and see how much it's gonna cost me.
It costs $27,390. And that thank you for bringing that up, because on most agendas the financial impact needs to be pretty clear. If they're approving a contract for a consultant, that dollar amount needs to be in that agenda item. And if it's not, then we have a problem. Todd maybe can talk about that. I'm not sure if he will. So you should get and expect some level of financial transparency on these agendas to understand where your dollars are going. But in terms of figuring out what Kagan Structures is, Before talking to this person, Sandeep Jaspal, if they are the staff person, you might just do a quick Google search to figure out who they are, what kinds of curriculum they do. Okay, do I think this is interesting? We're not going to go down this path, although my husband's an academic coach that he probably has a lot of thoughts about this. I know nothing. So I probably have used all my time. I could spend a lot of time Googling with you guys, and I'm always happy to do Google searches. I am my family's Googler and my in-laws Googler, and I'm happy to help other people. My email address is Danielle, Danielle, @fresnoland.org. My staff are also really excellent and willing to help too. So thank you all.
Thank you to Danielle. I love the live kind of help Google search and shout out from the crowd. This is actually a pretty good one. I mean, it's not super clear, but you'd be surprised how many major agencies have really difficult, blocky information. And the reality is the elected officials really want you to vote for them. They do not want you to come to the meeting messing up their process. Because if you're on the Fresno City Council, that is a paid position that is considered a full-time job. But almost all of the other positions under that, county is paid as well. The stipends that school board members get, they have to maintain a normal career. And they're after hours. And so they want those meetings to go as clean as possible. And one thing somebody didn't shout out was, when is public comment on that particular item? What I will just say as I'm transitioning to the next speaker is, if you go to Fresno Unified School Board meeting and you don't know that you can speak right at the beginning of the meeting, if you relate it to contract issues with the different bargaining units, you have to wait till the magic hour when all the other business is done. So you will be sitting in a room like this with your eyes glazed over trying to listen to the dysfunction of Fresno Unified until they get till 8-something p.m. and then they have a line of people with no functionality at all until somebody decides that it's public comment, and then you have to wait your turn in line to talk about anything that those elected officials have already decided was a moot issue. So that is our level of government, and sometimes you can put comment letters in advance. And we're going to go over those things as well, how to be effective outside of those meetings, but it's important for you to attend your public meetings. All right, I next want to welcome up a very special guest who just left the Fresno City Council meeting, and that is the city clerk for the city of Fresno, Todd Stermer. Please welcome Todd.
Thank you very much. All right, how's everybody doing today? All right. Okay, so much like the Board of Supervisors, nobody knows what the city clerk does. It's a running joke. I administer the democratic process for the city of Fresno. I do things like elections, and I'm at the meetings, make sure everything goes smoothly. One of my favorite things that that I have to make sure goes smooth is that we follow the Brown Act. The Brown Act is fantastic. I love just the beginning of the Brown Act. It really kind of lets you know what the purpose of that is. And I left all my other notes in the car. I have 2 brown folios, and I picked up the wrong one. But, so when it comes to the Brown Act, so in enacting this chapter, the legislature finds and declares that the public commissions, boards, and councils and other public agencies in the state exist to aid the conduct of the people's business. It is the intent of the law that their actions be taken openly and that their deliberations be conducted openly. The people of the state do not yield their sovereignty to the agencies which serve them. The people, in delegating authority, do not give their public servants the right to decide what is good for the people to know and what is not good for them to know. That is why the clerks are around. You have questions about anything, please call your city clerk. We get all sorts of calls, even the stuff that doesn't apply to us, but we'll make sure we do our darndest to get you to the right person. So I was asked to kind of demystify some of the things about a council meeting. If you've never been there, it can be very nerve-wracking to walk up to a podium like this and talk to 12 different people that are staring at you, hearing your own voice echo through the speakers. don't be nervous. Find me, wave, I'll get you relaxed a little bit. So it was said by Danielle and our host here that you have the right as the public to address your council members. So in this Fresno City Council, we have public comment. You are allowed to, typically it's 3 minutes, and these are all rules that are set in the Brown Act. The 3-minute part of it, it's not defined anywhere, but typically what cities do is they'll allow you 3 minutes to talk. So we have several parts to our agenda. If you were to look at it, so if you look at our agenda, what we've got is we have a consent calendar. A consent calendar is items that are regular course of business type items. So we're going to buy 50 widgets, we're going to pave this road. It's nothing out of the ordinary, and it's something that we just want to get through. And we'll typically have 26 items on the consent calendar. And so if you want to talk about any of those items, you come up when they call for public comment on the consent calendar, you come up and you get 3 minutes. If you want to talk about one item, you've got 3 minutes. If you want to talk about all 26, you only have the 3 minutes. But you get to talk about whatever it is. But they're all regular course of business. So it shouldn't be anything where you're not going to have enough time to talk what you want to talk about. Then we also have a public comment period, which allows you to talk about anything that's not on the agenda as long as it's within the subject matter of the city council. You can't talk about sending astronauts to space because the city council has no jurisdiction over that. So the council president will probably say, you got to keep it germane to something that we can handle here in the city. And this is all according to the Brown Act. So you may get up there and you want to start talking to your council member. Well, why is this happening? And they will sit there and they will look at you and they won't respond. The public comment period time is your time to comment. They're not going to respond somewhat because of the limitations in the Brown Act. We can't have a discussion about something unless it's listed in the agenda. So if you come up and you're going to talk about the zoo, well, if it wasn't on the agenda, they're not allowed to talk about it. Because if it's something they're going to discuss, it needs to be on the agenda so every other person in the city who thinks that's an interesting topic can come and share their opinion too. And now they can give brief responses, which oftentimes they do. But please don't be surprised if you're there to say something and you ask a question and they just look at you because they are prohibited from responding unless it's something very brief. So we have those two public comment periods. Then we also, on our agenda, we have the consent. Sometimes the consent items, a council member may have a question, so he'll remove it from the consent calendar to talk about it later. And then also, we have a section of the agenda called General Administration. It's something that doesn't fit under the consent, and typically the administration will bring it. We also have scheduled communication and unscheduled communication. I should explain what that is. Wow, there's a lot to cover. Well, we don't have a lot of time. So, scheduled communication. On the agenda that you saw above you, there were times, and someone was talking about SETA. That was someone from the public who said, you know what, I would like to address council. They went to my website. You can go to my website, fresno.gov/city clerk, and there's on the right-hand side, it says request to speak before council. The only caveat to that is you can't just do it the day before. We have policies in place. You have to make that request at least 10 days before the meeting. How many days? All right, you guys are awake. Thank you. So yeah, you have to make that request 10 days before the meeting. And if you do, you give me your name, you give me the subject you'd like to talk about. I pop that on the agenda. Typically, we do those at about 10 o'clock. What's great about being on the scheduled communication part of the agenda is when you get to the meeting, you know they will not call you until that time is hit. But they might call you after. So there's a lot of stuff on that agenda. Remember, I said there were like 26 items on the consent calendar. So we have to get through all this stuff. And there's the contested consent where the council members had questions. So they can always hear you after the item, but they can't hear you before the item. And let's see. If you are set up for scheduled communication, our rules of procedure, also available on the city clerk's website, that will tell you that you cannot also talk on unscheduled communication. That was your time. So that's scheduled communication. Unscheduled communication can be called at any time. Now, the Brown Act doesn't say when that unscheduled communication is supposed to happen. The current council president, we typically call it at the end of the day, so you don't have to be there right at the beginning of the meeting. Our meetings, by the way, are on Thursdays, and they always start at 9 o'clock. You can find that information on the city clerk's website. We also do post, the Brown Act requires that any regular meeting, a regular meeting is a meeting that has been adopted per a schedule. A regular meeting, where was I going with that? So a regular meeting has to be posted, the agenda, 72 hours before the meeting. And you can actually go to my website and look at the agendas, and there's a place where you can sign up to get a notice whenever we post an agenda. It can be for the city council meetings, it can be for the planning commission meetings, the historic preservation commission meetings. So if you're interested in any of our meetings, go there, sign up. You can also call my office and say, I would like an email every time you guys send one out, and we will send you a PDF copy of the agenda. We could also mail you one. There's a charge for that. We have to recoup our costs. So let me see. What else am I supposed to cover here? And I'm,
So
yes.
can I, at public comment period, ask for my council member to put that on the agenda coming for the next one? Because I don't know how, I don't want to, or I can't go to you.
So what will happen if you put yourself on scheduled communication, go to my website, say I'd like to talk about this, you can request the date. It has to be at least 10 days out, and it has to be one of our meeting dates, obviously. But if we call you and say, oh, great news, you're on the agenda, you're going to be at 10:03 today on this date. If you say, oh, I can't make it, just let us know. We can get it rescheduled. And what will happen is if you, one second, if you guys put yourself on the agenda and you tell me you're a certain district, the council member's office will call you and say, hey, so you're going to be on the agenda. Is there anything I can help you with right now? Which is very handy. We forward all those requests. Yes, you had a question.
Does the agenda include a copy of any proposed ordinance or resolution?
Right. So, yeah, when we publish our agenda, there will be a hyperlink to all the supplemental material. And actually, Danielle was on there when she clicked on it. And you click the word text to see the text of the staff report. So the staff report says everything about the item that you want to know, but then there's going to be links for attachments. At the end of the staff report, it will list them out, but then there'll actually be the buttons to click on them and download them and view them. We can print them up for you if you'd like. There's a cost for that. Like I say, we try to recoup our costs, but it's all what's allowed through the Brown Act and all those governing rules. Yes?
I have a question. Sorry if it's a silly one. Still.
No silly questions.
Do they ever have any meetings like that during not the middle of a work day? Because when I talk to the average person, that's the biggest thing. Oh, I can't do it.
Sure. So, City of Fresno always starts their meetings at 9 o'clock, and they're on Thursdays. Every city does it different. There are some cities that will start their meetings at 5:30. The larger the city gets, sometimes it's hard to make that happen. But no, all our meetings are at 9 o'clock. They will run very late, sometimes till close to 5. When there is an enormous item on the agenda that they know the public is just really chomping at the bit to talk about, they will move it to 5:30. In fact, on the meeting of April 24th, we have an item that will be heard at 5:30 p.m. So we're going to go through our meeting, and then we'll take a break if we're done, and at 5:30 we'll start it up again. Yeah, no, I can pull it up.
Is it the text amendment about the housing?
Yes, and the ministerial approval. Yes, that is. Thank you, Patience Milrod. I love seeing you at our meetings.
My question was, is there going to be any virtual, attendance or any virtual streaming for those of us who work?
Certainly. So, and on our agenda covers, it talks about all of that stuff. So the City of Fresno no longer has virtual participation. If you would like to view the meeting online, you certainly can. We have access through Zoom. Zoom is great because you can also listen to our meeting through one of our translated languages, English, Spanish, Hmong, and Punjabi. You can also watch it on YouTube. You can also watch it on Facebook. You can also watch it on Comcast and AT&T channels 98 and 96, I think. So there's lots of opportunities to view, but to participate, you got to be in chambers. That's how it's set up at the moment. Yes, sir.
Yeah, about the consent agenda, should the members of the public be wary or concerned that items get put on the consent
This guy's trying to set me up. No, so, that's a very nuanced question, and it comes to, our attorneys look at it, and it's very nuanced. It's based, your opinion is different than other people's opinions. Can a member of the public say, hey, this is not a great idea? You certainly can. Let me tell you, there are many ways to get information to the council members. I should probably talk about that real quick, getting information to the council members, but it relates. So you want to talk to the council member, you've looked at our agenda because you got that email, you're like, hey, this one item looks like something that we really need to have a discussion about. Why is it on the consent calendar? You can, it's in our rules and procedures, you can get your public comments on the agenda with that item. We send all those comments that we receive to the council members. So we have an e-comment option if you have a computer or a phone, you want to do it online. That comment period, though, closes 24 hours before the meeting starts. So it has to be in by then. You can send an email to my office, clerk@fresno.gov. Send me an email about it, and I will make sure that email gets sent out. It gets distributed to the administration. It gets sent out to the council members. The city attorney will get it, and that's another way to get stuff to the council members. If you send something in and it doesn't meet that 24-hour requirement, I will take that and I will make it a tray memo. A tray memo means I will take your comment and I will email it to all the council members as just for their information. This came in and it was directed to you. It did not meet the 24-hour requirement, so it's not part of the official record. If you get it in time, it gets included with the agenda package and it will for always be a part of it. So I saw this hand
Sorry, I
first.
promise this is my last question
Sure.
for you. Who makes the call on making the meeting accessible via the internet? Because that sounds like a deliberate move to not hear public comment.
Well, so that change happened a little while ago. There's a resolution you can look at. It says we would...
Council made the call?
It was approved by council, and it was approved saying we encourage participation and we want people to come and participate, and that's how it was adopted. I will say, AB 2449, that is something that was adopted at the state legislature level. It's incorporated into the Brown Act, and what that says is if a council member, for one of several reasons, cannot attend the meeting, he or she may do so virtually. And in that case, me as the clerk, I am to make the public aware, post it on the agenda if there is time, that you may join the meeting via Zoom to participate. Electronically, what it says. If they're participating electronically under AB 2449, then you get to as well. So if a council member I have to care for a sick relative, I'm going to invoke AB 2449 to participate remotely. You guys can all do so too. The way we do that is through Zoom, and if you register once through our link on our website, you are registered for all the meetings. So, and it'll go onto your calendar. You'll get email notices. So you just click a link and boom, you're in, and then you'll have the ability to raise your hand and talk when it's your turn. So, yes.
Question, so, what is the process for the anti-camping ordinance in Fresno for the unhoused? And what are the measures that you guys are taking to provide like vocational skills for the unhoused so you can be successful in life?
All right, take notes. Not my department. Whew. I wish I knew the answers to those, but I'm running those democratic processes in the chamber and for the elections. I am not on that other side of that. So, yeah. Yes, sir.
Can we describe how it works at the city of Fresno if you want to walk up and give public comments, or a form you have to fill out in advance that you give it to? What does it look like?
Certainly. So when you walk in, I'm moving digital. That's my plan. I want to have kiosks where you can type things in. That way I will get the correct spelling of your name and all that. So you come to one of my meetings, you walk in the front door, you will find little yellow cards at the back and also at the front, and a bunch of little pencils. Fill out your name, what item you'd like to talk on. You can put for or against. We have a checkbox for that. And bring it up to the front. We will hand that to the council president, and he will call you at the correct time. If we're on your item and he gets through all the cards he has, he will also make one last call. Is there anyone else who would like to address council on this item? At that point, you can just stand up, walk over to the podium, and start talking. You have 3 minutes. There are provisions, and this is in the Brown Act, and it's a lot of councils do this. Lots of councils handle it different ways, but there is a provision that will allow us to change public comment from 3 minutes to 2 minutes. We can do that if there's 20 people or more that are there to talk on the same item. So there are provisions for that. There's also provisions in the Brown Act that allow public comment to be limited to, for example, 1 hour. We're just going to do an hour because the city, 26 items on consent calendar alone, the city has to get through a lot of business, and a lot of times the people are saying the exact same thing over and over, and council will, the Brown Act, the state legislature said it's okay if we are going to allot just a certain amount of time for these public comments. Otherwise, the public business would never get done. So that's another thing. So was there another question going on there? Oh, yep. Oh,
Is there a good way to know like what time specific items are going to come up?
Oh, and the last part of there are scheduled matters and hearings, and they're listed on the agenda for specific times. And most of the time, those are hearings that are also published in the newspaper. Those items, easy enough to tell. But like I said, if something's running long, it might be heard later. It might be 5 minutes later. It could be an hour later. But you know it's not going to get heard before that. So, and we have an order for our agenda. So if you look at it, it starts with the invocation and roll call and all that stuff. Then we do our ceremonials. That may take us into the 10 o'clock hour. But then after that, we've got our consent. And then after consent, it is those timed items. And then after the timed items, that's when we get to the general admin items. So it's that order, and it's in the agenda. And usually we don't get finished with the ceremonials until about 10 o'clock. But if you're there at the beginning of the meeting, that's when we announce the changes to the agenda. So if you're really interested in this item over here, you might want to listen at least to the beginning of the meeting to find out if that item is staying on or if it's getting removed. Because sometimes items get removed. Somebody found something that's an issue with it, and they're like, we're not going to bring this today, we can't, or the attorney will have an issue, or a council member just wants more time with it, so they may remove an item and it doesn't get discussed at all. That happens at the very beginning of the meeting. So it's a little bit of a crapshoot, but at least you know the order and you know when everything's starting, and we do have some timed items. So
I'm part of a labor organization, and I saw it looked like they actually had some union meetings today,
Oh, yeah.
perhaps. But how come those, like I try to go back and watch the recording, then when it comes up to those negotiations,
Sure.
where it's microphone off, camera off.
Certainly. So he said, I'm part of a labor union. It looked like there were labor union items on the agenda, and there were. They were on closed session. So the Brown Act does provide for certain topics to be discussed in closed session alone. Courts construe narrowly those items, and so it has to fit really well in those areas. And a closed session is the time for council, not in front of the public, to discuss the items. If you're dealing with a lawsuit or negotiations for a union, you can't make those in public because then the other side knows exactly what's going on. The negotiations are just that, and the Brown Act makes allowances for that. Labor negotiations, negotiations for real estate, I'm saying that wrong, real estate negotiations, public employee performance evaluations, that's my employment evaluations happen behind closed doors. Oh, I wish you guys were there to listen. Oh, that's crazy. No, just kidding. But, so yeah, it does make provisions. But there are also reporting provisions. If they decide to settle something, there has to be a report out. A report of action is what they're called. And the Brown Act lists all of it. And they also have to list out what it is they're going to talk about before they go into closed session. Now, sometimes you may notice it'll say one potential case. That is also provided for in the Brown Act. There's a code section that says every once in a while, this is appropriate. So yeah, closed session. You guys are not privy to that, but there are requirements in the Brown Act to report out under certain conditions. And yeah, yes, you've had your hand up a while.
Any advice on how to leave, like, or make effective public comments? Ideally, comments that aren't, doesn't like glaze over council members' eyes or.
Wow, that is a great question because there have been some snooze fests in there. But there are people who are very persuasive. And I don't know precisely what they've got that the other people don't. but be confident. It is scary. It is so scary to talk in front of council because you feel like they're judging you. But just talk from the heart, I guess, and have your facts straight. That helps a lot too. And yeah, it's whatever makes good public speaking. Whatever I'm doing, just replicate that. No, I'm just kidding. But yes, sir.
Anything about people with disabilities and children with disability education? Does the government talk about anything like that?
Well, I mean, I can talk about City Hall. City Hall is accessible. Council chambers are accessible. We do have, for hearing impaired, we do have T-coil devices that work with hearing aids. We also have, there are elevators. I have ASL on online for people who need it, and it's not a disability. Translation I'm trying to make it as inclusive as possible for everybody, regardless of ability, regardless of language. That's what we're trying to do. And I'm always open to suggestions. The hardest part about it is money. Translators are very expensive. Although I'm working on something that will greatly increase our communication with a bunch of different languages, make it more accessible for people who speak one of 61 different languages. So you can hear the meeting in those different languages, you can read it in those different languages. I really have high hopes for this. It's something I'm bringing to council. Hopefully that'll happen. But that's really what I can talk about. I hope that answered your question. I'm not entirely certain it did.
Okay, now also, yeah, there was act related to access. I'm talking more about the employment rights discussion or educational rights discussion, people who are disability.
Certainly, and that's more of the policy end, and that would not be me, so I'm not really qualified to talk about that. I don't know if you have somebody else who might be able to, but I don't think that's me. Oh, I've been up here a long time. Anything else you would like me to cover? Anybody else?
I think you really did a great job. Can we give it up for Todd?
Thank you. Call the clerk's office. My staff is ready to help. It brings us great joy to assist the public. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Todd. Really appreciate it. Wow, man. City clerk can oftentimes be viewed as one of those really mundane, very specific offices, and Todd can probably, he could be a stand-up comedian in a different life. So that was really lively and a topic area that can be very challenging. I really appreciate some of these questions about folks asking policy questions. Now, we've led you up to this point so you can understand how kind of in the nuance the law makes things when it comes to different legislative bodies. Now, everything that Todd said, it's different at every level of government you go to. He just went through 20 things that were pretty complicated, and it's different at the legislative body you might be going to next. So just understand that people like Todd are doing a great job keeping all of the laws in line and parliamentary rules and making sure that things get followed to a T, because it's important on paper for everybody to be available for certain meetings in fairness. But our legislators can oftentimes use those laws to their advantage. You can organize 200 people to come to an affordable housing, policy discussion, and somebody who's against that discussion that knows they're going to lose that day might pull that item at 9:01 in the morning. And you have all of your people off of work, you're bussing people in, and all of a sudden your momentum is gone. And you got people there, they need to eat, and it's really difficult to replicate that 2 weeks later. So I do want to note that. And I also want to note that the County Board of Supervisors is supposed to be the next level of government up, and you can just mosey on up to the microphone with no such card and just decide to start talking, and they'll just look at you and start letting you talk. It's completely different at that level of government, and it really reflects different types of legislators. Sure, what do you got?
Sometimes they don't want to talk and they escort you out.
Yeah, they do. Sometimes you're doing a good job, and they will say, oh, sorry, you can't talk about that, and they'll cut you off. And then other times, and this is where I'll finish, we had an activist in Kern County who we thought that she was on our side of the issues, and she stood up in violent protest of an issue that was probably correct and said, we know where all of you guys live, we'll burn down your MFing houses. And they arrested her, and she is in jail right now. So do not do that. Do not let your emotions get the better of you. We led you up to this point because our next two experts in the legal field and the organizing field are going to teach you how to theoretically burn these MFers down, okay? There's ways to get your policies across without going to jail or without having your legislative officials silence you. And we wanted to present the agenda for the city council today so Todd could go over it, but it was 18 pages long. And that's not necessarily efficient for printing. It's also not necessarily efficient for you to show up for that first hour like Todd talked about, because most legislative bodies want to tell you for the first hour about who they're honoring for the month. It's a Brown Curtain Awareness Day for this month, and it's, you know, marble floor, it's pageantry, most of it. So you have to know when your meeting is. You might want to listen in advance before you pay the parking meter. All right. Next up, two of our most seasoned local elected official activists in the region, not elected officials. We have attorney Patience Milrod, and I believe she'll be joined by Keith Bergthold in and out of this program. So please give it up for Patience and Keith. Wonderful activists.
Well, this is one beautiful crowd. Thanks for joining us. Seriously, when I learned that there were more than 100 people signed up for this, I thought, oh my gosh. I mean, this is definitely a nerd fest, y'all. So I really appreciate the interest that you've got here. Somebody asked Todd, I want to thank Todd, I think he snuck out. No, he didn't. That's pretty awesome. You've spent all day long listening to city council members, blah, 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 and here you are, and I really appreciate it. I learned stuff. I want to say one thing. I know you don't necessarily have control over this, but to the extent you can have influence, it is a denial of public comment when people have to sit around all day long for hours and hours waiting for the board president to at some point condescend to let people come and talk. So, like, I'm just saying, like, don't make me come down there. Okay. All right. Keith's going to take the lead on this. We're keeping in mind Dillon's caution that you don't want to go to city council or board of supervisors or something, get yourself arrested. So that's the low bar. So we want to actually talk about how to be persuasive and effective and bring them with you. So Keith's really good at this, so I'm going to let him.
You know, I think there's a lot of false advertising going on here. The thing that's the most important is, are you happy with everything that's going on in the city of Fresno? Are you happy with everything that's going on in the city of Fresno? No. Are you happy with everything that's going on in the county of Fresno?
No.
Are you happy with Tulare? No. All right. Part of the issue with this is you got to have a reason to communicate. There's got to be something you want them to understand about something you're either unhappy with or dissatisfied with or angry with or something, right? Does that make sense? It's called tension. You need to feel some tension around a public issue to enter the public space. Does that make sense? So if I want to advance that, I want to make sure I don't screw it up. Next one. Okay. Think about the idea that what you've heard the last hour and a half are really exceptional mechanics. It's the mechanics, right? It's the stuff, it's the rules, it's the laws, it's the policies, the procedures surrounding the agenda for a city council, right? But what about a particular issue? What about a particular issue you'd like them to do something different than they've done or they're going to do? Can you yell an issue? What's something that's... Homelessness. What else? Disability. SEDA. Thank you. Really, there are so many issues, and the way that you learn to communicate is to recognize the fact that you can't communicate with people you can't connect with. Does that make sense? So the idea is you've got to side on the issue, and you've got to figure out who you are, what you want, why you want it, and how you want to get it resolved, right? And where and when you want that to happen. The opposition has the same thing, whether it's a decision maker or somebody who doesn't agree with you on your view of that issue, right? They have a sense of identity and aspiration, and they have a reason why they don't want to do it the way you want to do it. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Do you think you're going to move an issue if you don't understand the opposition? Do you think you're going to influence an elected official if you don't understand what their position is on that issue? Well, this is good. I feel some unanimity here, right? So part of the idea is really to think about, how do I understand the issue in a way where I can actually make that effective comment, someone raised that issue, or write that effective letter, right? And I have to do my research, and I actually need to talk to my elected official. I need to talk to my own group of stakeholders. I need to probably talk to, maybe it's the city manager or the planning department, depending on the issue, right? The people in the homelessness department or whatever, right? Does that make sense? Yeah. So part of this is the context. What are the politics around this? Why is the city not doing it the way you want to do it? For you to be able to enter into that space, you really have to understand why you want it and why they want it or don't want it. Is this fair enough? I think the thing I want to get across mostly with this is that the issue is surrounded by a lot of context. It's surrounded by a lot of things that aren't mechanical. We need to understand the mechanics to make some progress with them, but we need to understand why the city doesn't have the sidewalks in my neighborhood the way they should be. Why aren't they have the street lights? Why are they, really, Fresno streets aren't that good. They really aren't that good. You go to some other cities and they really have good streets, right? Whatever it is, whether it's response to the police, the issue of addressing homeless or whatever it is, right? And you have to experience some tension around that, enough tension that you want to see it happen and realize that you need to get a lot of people with you to move that issue. We'll talk some more about that, but I think really I'll let Patience get in here and talk about maybe the first step is understanding how to write that letter, right?
Well, once you know what you want to say, and I totally, every single thing Keith just said, you really do need to understand the context. It's very difficult to be persuasive if you're theoretically talking to a wall, right? There's a person, a set of people, a set of interests that are receiving whatever it is you're saying. City council members, they didn't get to be city council members because, well, some of them did just wake up one morning and say, how hard could it be? And they get elected. But most of the time, they need to make friends with people who have a lot of money so that somebody will help them pay for the media and pay for the consultants and whatever in order to get elected. So those relationships, I'm not suggesting anyone's bribing anybody, but I gotta say, those are relationships that have impact on the elected person's perspective. So the more you know about the context in which they operate, how they got, who are their friends, who are their donors, and that's something you can find out. I bet Donnie's got this on the tip of her tongue if she's still here. It's the Form 700, 730, 7 there's, yeah. So the state of California makes elected officials report who's giving them money. So you can go, and that's online, you can go and look and see who's giving them money. So that's not the only issue. You also have to really understand the facts of the situation that you're concerned about. And then you want to craft a message. And the message there's two kinds of comment letters. One is a comment letter that's short and sweet and is really targeted to your council member, and it's really intended to persuade. The other kind of comment letter is the kind I have to write, which is, I'm going to sue you, so I have to tell you everything you're doing wrong in detail so that later the judge can say, I gave you fair warning about what I was going to sue you about. So that's a more tedious, it's more tedious to write and it's certainly more tedious to read, but it's also part of making a record. So our public bodies, the way they act, the way they govern is in public, in front of everybody. That was Todd's point, right? They have to make decisions in public. And so you want to affect those decisions one way or the other, either because they're worried about possible litigation or because you're actually persuading them. Now, I interrupted Donnie earlier. I asked her to put up the agenda item about SEDA today because two individuals, just regular people, made a date with the city council. They used Todd's famous clerk.fresno.gov, whatever it is, and they made a reservation for some time on the city council agenda because they had been last council meeting and spent 4 hours and never got an opportunity to speak. So they made a reservation on the city council agenda for today, and each of them spoke for 3 minutes. And I saw a video of one of the presentations, and the council members were really, it's a lot of times they're checking their phone, they're just scrolling through their iPad, they're talking to their assistant, they get up and go get a drink of water, whatever. I mean, those of you who've been to city council meetings have watched the extraordinarily respectful way that they receive everyone's comments, right? But this was like, they were just really, so she had figured out how to get their attention and deliver a message in 2 minutes and 49 seconds. So how to do that? If you can do that, you can take that, translate that into a comment letter. So comment letters are one of the ways that you can communicate with council members, and it should be one of multiple. If there's something you really care about, don't stop at a comment letter. Don't stop at a public comment in council. You also want to email your council member directly. You want to make an appointment with your council member and go in with your partners. Keith pointed out the context in which all this happens. And so you want to take advantage of the people who may already know the council member better than you do, who are working with you on your issue, or people that are subject matter experts on a particular issue that you want to take in and who can say, that I won't, I don't want to get in the weeds, but there's weeds to get into, and that's one of the things that council members have to do. And so you want to be able to tell them, I know what the weeds are, and I know what happens when we get in there, and this is how you should be thinking about it, and here's an expert who knows about it, and I'm bringing them with me to have a conversation with you. So you want to know who I'm not going to mess with Google here, but when you go to the city council webpage, and you click on a council member, you can see their staff, and there's photographs and there's email addresses. And so you want to know who is the scheduler and or the chief of staff for your council member, and you want to be best friends with them. You're not like, you're like, hey, can you help me? I want to talk to council member so-and-so about such and such, and can you find me some time? I know the council member is so busy, and it would be so helpful. And so then I have never yet had a situation where the staffer said, hell no. So it's that's their job, is to help you out. So I'm just talking about comment letters, and I just got to say, know what your point is, have good facts, use simple declarative sentences, don't go on and on and on with lots of adjectives and whatnot, and have a reader. Have a friend or a colleague or an ally who can read it and say, I don't know what you thought you were trying to say here, but you need to move this paragraph over here, and you need to cut this whole section out, and, don't use profanity in your letter to the, whatever. So you want a commenter, you want an editor to help you craft a letter that's going to have the impact that you want to have. What have I forgotten?
That's good.
Your turn.
Talking about testimony?
Yeah.
So somebody said, it is kind of.
I have a question.
Yes.
So when you construct this letter, is it limited to a 3-minute lead time until you are in front of?
The 3 minutes applies only to when you are standing up in front of the city council and speaking to them. And they'll have little lights. There's a green light, which means you're pretty good. Yellow light means you've got 30 seconds. Red light means shut up. Yes, sir.
You get up there, set a timer, so you know how much time you have. Use your phone, set it for 3 minutes. You know when you need to speed up or not. It's huge, it's so helpful.
That helps, and the other thing that helps is to actually stand in front of your mirror and do it a few times, and that'll help you. I'm positive the woman who spoke today had done that in 2 minutes and 49 seconds. That's pretty dang good.
So you got an issue, and you want to have an impact on the issue. And probably the first place to start is to go through what you might consider due process, right? Like, go meet with your councilman and ask him or her, what would it take to get something done on this issue? Does this make sense? And they'll probably tell you. And you can ask them, what are the barriers? If you don't like their answer, well, what has to change? What would it take to change your mind on this issue? What are the nuances from your perspective on this issue? You got to figure out if you really want to have an impact. And by the way, just public testimony is worth it, just to get up in front and experience the idea of being in public space. But if you really want to impact the issue, if you really want to see change, then you have to find out where the leverage point is. Does this make sense? And the place to start, probably, you could start with one of the staff. You could go to your council person. You could probably, in 3 meetings, get pretty close to figuring out what's it going to take to get something done, right? There's lots of examples, I think, of people who were surprised how easy it was to get a stop sign or get the curb painted red or, stop knocking over my trash can, whatever it is, right? Because they brought it up. But if you're talking about a whole city deciding to grow in a different way, well, maybe that's a little bit bigger issue, right? And you have to have a lot more going for you. So testimony is glorious if you have that leverage point and the council starts looking at you like, okay, there's something going on here, right? And by the way, don't let them ever judge you. They work for you, right? They work for you. You're paying taxes, sales taxes, property taxes, either through your home or rent. You're paying a lot for this, and if they aren't providing the standard of service you want, it's good for you to bring that up, right? I'm just going to tell a little story because Dan kind of encouraged me, but we did a lot of work back in 2010 and 2011 and 2012 to figure out how to move the city from 100% sprawl model to infill and affordable housing and transit corridors and things like that. And we came up with 5 alternatives that we actually evaluated with some pretty sophisticated technology. And the assessment of the alternatives told us some produce less air pollution, less greenhouse gases, use less water, use less energy. And we teed those things up. And we went and talked to people. And we showed them there were really radical differences between these alternatives. Some were very beneficial. Some were very not beneficial at all, right? In fact, they were actually negative for the city. And we talked to people for 6 months and went out and talked to thousands of people and made sure they understood that. And so one night, when the city council was scheduled to consider a vote on which alternative they wanted, A, B, C, D, or E, 350 people showed up. And the testimonies, and they knew what they're talking about. They knew the difference between these alternatives. They knew how to speak to them. They spoke to it from their head and their hearts. They knew why they wanted, in fact, most people there were for alternative A, which was the most efficient, least pollution producing, et cetera, and most effective for the fiscal status of the city, et cetera. The testimony started at 5:30 and ended after midnight. 87 people spoke, 82 in favor of alternative A, and 5 developers who were like, oh my gosh. Lee Brand, at the end of that, it's probably 12:30. He was a councilman, I don't think he was mayor, he wasn't mayor then, and said, well, we're going to have to delay this vote because we got to talk about this some more, but I know one thing for sure, a lot of people want alternative A. Right? And then we held a meeting, it was a hearing 2 weeks later, and they passed alternative A. The point I'm trying to make is everything that went into that public testimony and everybody speaking about it knew what they were talking about, they had the facts, and they literally persuaded the council that they understood it better than the council did. So there's different ways to do public testimony. You can, big, small, they all count, but the most important thing is to actually know what you're talking about.
Exactly. That was actually, we still are operating under alternative A for the moment. So SADA essentially upends alternative A. It puts us back in sprawl mode, just saying. So, okay.
I apologize.
It's all right. Oh, Public Records Act requests. Part of the way you can know, you can have the facts is to find out what information does the city have about it. And one of the important things about this is, I don't want to say that city council members would ever gaslight us, but there are things that they sometimes know that they don't necessarily share with the rest of us that would be very, very pertinent to the issue at hand. So right now, I happen to be eyebrow deep in SADA, so please excuse me because I'm going to talk about it. One of the things that we understand the city has done is that they have done a market study to find out if they annex these 9,000 acres and they put 45,000 units out there and 135,000 people, like that's the theory, right? But is there a demand for those housing units? So they paid a consultant apparently to do this, to figure this out, like what's the housing demand in the city of Fresno? And if we build all these above moderate income houses out in the very fringes of nowhere land, will there be a market for those houses? Well, if I were the city and that study came back saying, yes, build it and they will come, I would for sure stick it in the EIR because our population isn't growing very quickly and there's a burden on them now to show that if they build all this new housing that anybody's going to want it. So they haven't made it public. So I did a Public Records Act request. And I do have to say this is an exercise that is often the sort of thing that makes you want to tear out your hair. Everybody who's had this experience, you know what I'm talking about. So it's nothing very complicated. You don't have to have a lawyer to do it. You just write a letter saying, in my case, I wrote a letter saying, I want to see this study that you guys had done. And the website for the people who did the study, they boast about having done it, so we know you've got it, so would you please provide it to me? I have every reason to believe they already have it. It is complete. I have now received 3 responses, each of them saying, one of them saying, oh, well, we have records apparently responsive to your request, but we need more time. And then I got we need more time. And then I got we need more time. So at some point, this is the problem with the Public Records Act request. If they really don't want to give it to you, then you have to fight with them about it. And that does probably, it'd be good to have a lawyer if you want to do that. But so this is an unfinished story yet. I haven't decided if I'm suing them or not. Dylan.
For the public records request, you already mentioned you don't have to be a lawyer, anybody can do it. Just walk us through, who did you email? What did it look? Was it 1 sentence? Was it 2? Who was it that you emailed?
So you know what? I meant to send you a template. I'm sending you a template. So it really is it can just be a letter. And I sent it by email. They have a portal, a public records portal or something like that you can go to directly and just plug in your name, your address, and then they'll know which district you're in, and then you write your question. Please provide me this information, or please provide me all the documents that show that support this statement that the city manager made, or whatever your question is, whatever document it is you're looking for. Give me just one more second, Matthew. The thing is, you can't ask them to prepare a report for you. You can't ask them to compile records for you that they don't know or haven't already compiled. So they're going to give you documents they already have. So I'm asking in this case for a report. I believe they have the report. I will see that report someday. They don't know that yet. Yes, Matthew.
Just to say, all these bodies that we've been talking about tonight, you can utilize the public records request. So whether it be water districts or
Right.
school boards
Yes.
or any of these bodies.
Yes. And the Public Records Act is almost as good as the Brown Act. I don't have it on my phone, but it basically says that the information that is available to elected officials, you get to see it, except for, I mean, there's obviously exceptions like the certain kinds of police records that have to do with the, like sensitive victim information, stuff like that. You're not going to get people's addresses and phone numbers. You know, there are things they're not going to give you, but basically the default position has to be they will produce it quickly, and they will either not charge you or they will charge you something extremely minimal. So they can't say, oh yeah, we had to have a paralegal do this and it cost us $500 an hour, and no. And most of the time now you can get, you get the stuff electronically. Dillon.
Which city office would you send it? Which office would you send this to in any elected body or person?
So that's a good question. Probably the clerk is the logical person. And I know a bunch of people that have done Public Records Act requests recently saying, hey, I live in this neighborhood, this street, this street, this street, here's the boundaries of my neighborhood. Please tell me, what are the infrastructure needs that the city has documented for this area, and what will the price be to fulfill those needs, to fix the sidewalks and the holes in the streets and repair the whatever, trim the street trees, whatever. And those Public Records Act requests have gone to the council member in question. They went to the city manager. They went to the city attorney. I heard from the city manager she was very annoyed. She didn't want to be seeing these. But you know what? Too bad. I mean, so you may have strategic reasons to do something other than just fill the portal in. Otherwise, I mean, if it's just like, I want to know, I want to see the paving contract for my street improvements. That's probably not going to be a big deal, and there's not going to be a fight about it. Nobody's going to need to hide it from you, and you could just put it in the portal. And you ought to get it within 10 days. If they need extra time, they get another 14 days. This is also an understaffed function in the city attorney's office, so yeah, it may not be 24 days. Yes, Matthew.
I'll just say, I mean, the city clerk is definitely the best one. They will aggregate it to where it needs to be, even if they're not the right first point of contact. But it is very good to, shoot everywhere you can. They will say, oh, this is where it's supposed to be. They'll kind of aggregate them all together into one reference number. But as Patience was saying, get as many eyes as possible, even if you notice them.
They do, that's a good point. They do direct it. So if you want the paving contract, they would send it to the Public Works Department. So you don't have to know that it should go to the Public Works Department. The city clerk's office will send it there. That's it. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Will they send things to the school board?
Yes, any elected body, any public body, you get to know, like, what's the information that they have. You get to find out. And, confidential things, like Todd said, the evaluations of staff, stuff like that, you don't get that. But things that are legit.
To clarify that, I think she was asking if the city council or the city government body will
No,
send it to another government
not likely.
body.
Wait, I'm sorry, I didn't know.
We would refer to the school district. No, you want to send it to the school district if you want the school
Right.
district to send
I'm
it.
sorry, yeah, they will not send it to another entity. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that, everybody.
Where you go? Okay. Matthew?
One last one. The form you were talking about before, if you want to look at elected officials, their finances and their donations, that's a Form 470.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a lot of fun just to kind of get context behind that person, to see who they may be beholden to, where their mindset was before you send that public records request act or that public comment, whatever it might be.
Right.
Form 470.
Right, thank you.
So we talked a little bit about meeting with your elected officials. You need to do that as part of due process to understand the issue, right? And maybe you meet with 20 other people to really understand the issue. You might need to meet with the city attorney. It just depends on the level of detail the nuances and things like that. But if you want change, I'm going to go back. If you want change, you got to put this issue into tension. You have to know that the status quo in your issue, if you believe this, is unacceptable, and that you want something different. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Speaking of issues and tension, I never really have access to a lawyer, so I have two questions for you. Short statement and then two questions. So the legal thing isn't always the moral thing. At one point, it was illegal for someone like a woman to vote or a person of color like myself at a lunch counter, and people were arrested for it. So, and on the local level, we're seeing the policies that are increasing the militarization of Fresno PD and continuing to harm the most vulnerable in our community, like the sit, lie, sleep ban. So from a lawyer's perspective, what can the people do when enough is enough, when harmful policy continues being passed, no matter how much public comment and peaceful protest we make? And do you know any local lawyers ready to provide legal aid to people who are willing to fight for our rights, especially as time goes on?
Well, I was in the Fresno County Courthouse today with Kevin Little, who was representing Wiki Two Hands, and the city attorney's office made a few mistakes, and the judge ended up dismissing the case. But that was an example of a situation where there's an ordinance that is unconstitutional. The sit, lie, sleep ban is unconstitutional, and Kevin was prepared to take it all the way. And he was, I have to say, a little frustrated that he didn't get to have the trial that he was expecting to have. But that's one way, is that there's an arrest under an unlawful ordinance, and then you challenge it in the case where they're prosecuting the person who's violated this ban. So that's one way. I hate to say this, but I'm going to mention the national situation. We're in a place where I'm not clear whether or not the legal system is really going to keep working. I mean, it's not like it's ever worked really well. I've always had to tell my clients, it's not a justice system, it's a court system. That's really different. I guess unless there is public activism, then it doesn't matter what lawyers do. So there has to be both. There has to be all of this, and lawyers who are able and willing to say what needs to be said to the people who need to hear it. So there's not a 25-second answer to your question. Happy to discuss later.
Great questions. So I was asked to talk a little bit about coalition, and coalition only makes sense if you need a lot of people to get something done, right? So I just want to make sure, because there's great ways to get some things done depending on the size and the scale of the problem and how easy it is versus the big stuff. But I'll just stop, and I'm going to play off of Patience a little bit, because I don't want to leave here and have an audience like this and not say this. You should be extraordinarily angry about the Southeast Development Area proposal if you live in the city of Fresno or anywhere around the city of Fresno. You should be angry because the city can't take care of what it already owns. That's pretty obvious driving around, right? Please go to the Greenfield Coalition website and see the urban decay study we paid $100,000 for that links our accumulated blight and urban decay to sprawl for 70 years, and it's getting worse, right? We're talking about billions of dollars if they build this thing out over 30 years that needs to go in the center of the city and make it healthy and prosperous here. There's not a single city resident in the 9,000 acres they want to plan and annex. Not a single city resident. If you look at the west side of 99, there's like 70 or 80,000 people live in the city, and they have room for 1.5 setas if we needed to do that, right? Infill just in the existing city limits has enough capacity for all the units they're proposing out there. This is probably something everybody should take a look at and see if you can get a little motivated and understand it so you can speak to the city council and say, look, your priorities seem to be wrong. You work for us. Your priorities are wrong. We need you to take care of what you already have responsibility for. You see where I'm going with this in a way? We have to be angry enough respectful and clear about the issue and cut the issue appropriately so we have leverage. But if we're not angry and there's no tension in us around this, how could we possibly persuade decision makers? And we really need them to see 400 or 500 or 600 people in a room going, stop and do the right studies, stop and do the right analyses. Don't just listen to people that own developable land out there, right? Listen to your residents who are actually paying your salaries. Does this make sense? And all I can tell you is there's some things that are so obvious. And we have all kinds of issues that are all important at every scale. But this thing could be ultimately $4, $5, $6, $7, $8 billion worth of inappropriate investment by the city that doesn't reward anybody that lives in the city now. In fact, it probably makes their life worse. Does that go ahead.
My question is, can you explain what it is? Because I don't have an understanding of what the city's trying to do.
The city has the opportunity to grow to the east of Temperance and annex around 9,000 acres. That's 14 square miles. And it's mostly ag land and small farms. There's like 700 houses out there, 700 residents, and they're all in the county. And all we're suggesting is do the right analysis. Make sure this is the right thing. Show us the facts. Patience and I ferreted out 2 years ago that the population trajectory of California had changed dramatically. California used to be a place where we grew, right? And it was pleasant to be here. Now we burn down 15,000 houses a month in LA, right? And it's not growing anymore. So, for example, between 1970 and 2022, the average growth rate of our county was about 1.75% a year. The forecast for the next 50 years is less than 0.2%. So the growth is way off, and that means all of these financing models that they've used in the past, which still don't make them any money, are really off, which means who's going to pay for it? We are. Right?
Yep.
And if you can handle that and the inflation that's coming out of DC, I want to move in with you. Yes, sir. Yes, and by the way, that's a really good piece. It has very specific ways to write effective letters, do effective testimony, and all those kinds of things.
You guys will all get this in a follow-up email, digital resources as well.
But I don't want to leave here without lighting a little fire. Take a look at this. At least go to the Greenfield Coalition website. Just Google Greenfield Coalition. Letters will pop up. You'll see the studies. There's lots of resources there. This thing is truly lethal.
You can also go to stopseda.org.
Yep.
stopseda.org.
And so the idea would be, we could tell you about coalition building and campaigns. You could actually be part of one really quickly.
I was just going to ask regarding Zeta. I apologize, I'm not a Fresno native. Where would you say Fresno is on the 30-year suburban life cycle Ponzi scheme?
On what?
The 30-year suburban life cycle Ponzi scheme, the Strong Towns.
Well, they don't read Strong Town's website, I know that, right? So we haven't figured out, and Patience and I both sat on a general plan implementation review committee for 2 years, even during COVID. And we got $215,000 out of that committee with the help of Nelson Esparza, and they hired a consultant to do a fiscal impact analysis and model to really figure out, does this stuff work? Guess what? They don't use that. They don't want to see it.
Right.
They don't want, don't confuse me with the facts.
Right.
This is politics.
Exactly. So, this was, Dillon, thank you. This was not supposed to be a SEDA primer, but as I say, Keith has been working on this really hard. I've been working on it really hard. A lot of people have, and it's a good example actually of coalition building. So it's an example. So my neighbor was like, God, I'm just going crazy about the national scene. I don't know what to do. I said, well, I've got a local thing for you to work on. And she said, what? And I told her about it. She's like, really? She organized a meeting at her boyfriend's house. There were 40 people there. Of the 40 people at her boyfriend's house, this is over 3 days. And of those people, 30 of them have written Public Records Act requests in order to be able to say to their council members, either I asked you what it's going to cost to fix my neighborhood, and you would not tell me, why not? Or I asked you, you told me what it's going to cost, and I want to know how you're going to pay for that plus SATA. So it's and meantime, we're annoying the hell out of everybody who's got to respond to these Public Records Act requests. And, there's a lot of, now people, my neighbor, again, she's amazing. She's organizing folks to go and go talk to the city council. Not because SATA's on the agenda, but when SATA's not on the agenda. So that city council members know, hey, this is like, whoa, what? This is not normal. I mean, normally what they expect is when the thing comes up, there's some people there, and sometimes they do the thing that Keith described, or maybe it was Dillon, like, yeah, we're gonna pull this and wait until these people have to all go back to work, and then we'll put it back on the agenda some other inconvenient time. So there's a significant amount of energy. Rhonda Dirk from Jackson, CDC, a Community Development Corporation, they've written a letter. Rhonda's organizing in her neighborhood, and people are seeing this like, well, wait a minute, what about us? And so the tension often arises when people can see, how does public policy affect me in my daily life? And at the point that you can identify that and focus your council members' attention on that is very powerful, especially when there are a lot of you and you are explaining why it is this thing they want to do actually does not make any sense from the point of view of the welfare of the people that they actually serve. Let's see what else we wanted to.
Just want to say while you're looking. So the idea of working with people on big issues, what happens to you? You start to feel connected with people you didn't know before because you share a similar feeling about something, right? And isn't that really what our democracy is about, is knowing that we need each other and we have to cooperate and we have to work together and stuff? And sometimes we just get locked into these patterns where we're just kind of isolating ourselves. I think social media is crazy. The idea is democracy really requires a lot of face-to-face action together to hold it together, right? And so this is just not SATA, but all this stuff is all an opportunity. And the civic space that Dillon and Dan are talking about, us invading together. If you do your homework and you know what you're talking about and you're meeting new people and they're doing their homework and they know what they're talking about and you all go together, it's like the best feeling in the whole world. It's better than liquor. It's better than a lot of things. It just is. It just is, right? You feel so good about doing something that's meaningful. And this isn't about demonizing anybody. It's not been putting anybody down. It's having facts and saying, let's look at the facts together and let's move this issue for the benefit of everybody that lives here. It feels good. That's all I can tell you. It feels good, and there's ways to organize it, and I volunteer to help you organize it.
Amen.
Patience and Keith, wonderful lifelong community advocates here in the city of Fresno and beyond. Now you all have scratched the surface of the tools. Here's what I want you to do. I want you not only to find a local issue that'll take the anxiety off of whatever's happening at the national level that can feel very distant and very oppressive. Think about a local issue that you can change, and then look at the remainder of the Empowerment Institute's schedule. We have a couple more very awesome policy discussions coming up. Again, land justice next month, all about land use, 100 years of oppression, of stealing land in the Central Valley, 30 by 30, and other wonderful conservation topics. But as it relates to campaigns and it relates to utilizing your power and growing your skills here, we have a campaigns academy happening later this summer. So again, the organizer series is how to run for office, not for everybody, but interesting. How to run campaigns, which can be very interesting if you're interested, but not, maybe don't want to run for office. How to become an organizer, one-to-one conversations, how to talk to people at the door and beyond. And finally, how to form a union. So I just wanted to wrap that up with a bow, skills building workshops. All of this curriculum all year long is tied together on teaching you how to become a better activist. So I want to thank everybody for sticking out to 8 o'clock. This is wonderful. So many great folks in the room. If there's leftover food, you can have it. Thanks for all the presenters. Thanks for the union. Thanks to you all. We'll see you at the next Empowerment Institute. Have a good night.